Um, all right, our speakers today are from the Organic Farming Research Foundation, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their new farmer trials program, which is super exciting. And I think you're going to have some people very interested in this that are here right now, and even more that are going to watch this recording. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Everyone else, if you have questions, feel free to stick them in the chat. Hey, Erica, is that coming from you? Can you mute? Thank you. Perfect. All right. Thank you, ladies. Take it away.
Great, thanks. Can you all see my screen? I'm going to put it in presentation mode if you can.
Yep, looks good.
Cool. All right. All right, there we are. Beautiful. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having us. This is really great. It's always awesome to get to chat with growers groups. It's really wonderful that you have one of these that's robust in your area. Not every state gets this for their organic growers, so already pat on the back. This is fantastic. Um, I'm so excited to talk to you all a little bit about our farmer-led trials program here at the Organic Farming Research Foundation. This is our team that gets to work on this project. My name is Mary Hathaway, and I'm the Research and Education Program Manager. We also have Thelma Velez, who's our Research and Education Director. She's on the call too, in case any questions come in for her on anything with this or otherwise. And then as well on the team, we have our senior scientist, Heather Estrada. And so these are the three core people that get the joy of working with the farmers in this cohort and have had a hand in designing the program for our group. So a little bit about the Organic Farming Research Foundation. We're a national nonprofit founded in 1990. And our goal is really to foster the improvement and widespread adoption of organic farming systems and really seeing it as the dominant agricultural system within the United States. And we've been working for that mission for a long time. Where we started was really with research. You know, if we really wanted to push organic as a system, we needed to see the research there. And so a biggest part of what we do is research, is making sure that there is funding available for researchers to do organic agricultural research. We also want to make sure that the research that is out there gets spread to people in different educational resources, right? So not just saying, here's some research that's been done, but how do we distill it and help make sure it's in a format that farmers actually want to use and see and find accessible. So all of our materials are free and available on our website. These are things like online courses. They could be fact sheets, research and research summaries, things like that. Everything, again, free, available on our website, all or on organic agricultural practices. And the other piece of what we really do is advocate, right? If there's going to be a certain amount of organic agriculture out there, we got to make sure the policies are there to support those practices. And we just want to make sure that farmers' voices are heard. And we work really diligently for that, both on Capitol Hill as well as in state capitals across the country. So I just want to touch, since this is kind of the arm that the farmer-led trials is in, our research and education work. One of the biggest pieces of what we do is about every 5 years, we listen to farmers and kind of get like, what are your production challenges? What are your non-production challenges? How do you like to receive information? Where are you receiving now? What are your gaps? And this is called our National Organic Research Agenda. You can check it out. Basically, it's just making sure that if researchers or anyone else wants to make the argument that this is what farmers needs, it actually comes from farmers' voices. And so it's really important to hear from you. Throwing it out there, you might hear from us someday soon because we're about to do another research survey to get kind of where we are, get the temperature right now. I did mention that we really started from a place of getting this organic agricultural research out there and creating spaces, especially for early career research. We've been doing grant making for about 30 years now as our organization, and it really has always focused on relevant on-farm research, right? Like making sure that researchers are working directly with farmers on there. And farmer-led research is really just the next extension of kind of what we've seen a need for and what we think is important in how people access information and how people like say like, this is what I tried, this is what's worked for me, and making sure that we're a part of the farmer-led innovation solutions. And I will just mention one thing I did want to plug. We are about to launch in early 2025 a searchable online database, kind of an organic research hub, where you can, type in where your region you're interested in, what crop it is, and see what relevant research is out there that might meet your needs or be of interest to you. So keep your eyes out for that. We're really excited. Should be out about February or March of 2025. Okay, so why did we end up doing this? Farmer-led trials has been one of the most exciting programs we've launched. I say that because I get to do it and it's wonderful. But it really is important, right? Farmers are so curious. There's always something you want to tweak. There's always something where you're like, what if I did this, right? And we're curious by nature. We want to make these comparisons. We want our production systems to move smoother, right? But sometimes the research maybe isn't directly on our farm, or sometimes we're trialing things on our farms and we don't maybe do it in a way that gives us results we can rely on, right? You're like, well, I kind of saw this, but this in this field, this fertility is higher anyways, or there's more shade here, right? And so our goal was to support farmers and ranchers in conducting these trials on their farms that could actually give them something they can use, but also give them the results that have rigor where you're like, this is what I saw and it made a difference. And so that's where the meat of this is. And I do want to give a lot of credit. We couldn't have gotten to where we are without the guidance and support from like Practical Farmers of Iowa, who've been doing their cooperators program and is just an immense wealth of like information and has really been the front runner for this, as well as our partners up in Canada. EFAO, Ecological Farmers of Ontario, who also have a really great suite of resources from their farmer-led trials program, very similar to ours. But what we did see is that there is not one that is A, specific to organic, or B, national, right? So we have something kind of in the Iowa area, and right now there's not really anything specifically for, farmers just trying to run trials. And so that's kind of where as an organization we thought we could be. And so we were lucky enough to receive funding from the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, which is a really wonderful infusion of cash into organic agriculture. There are a lot of different programs, a lot of different organizations throughout the country are doing different things, right? Like great field days, mentorship opportunities, affinity groups, things like that. I'm sure you've probably seen or heard of some of these, but we were lucky enough to partner with National Organic Coalition and Organic Farmers Association on a larger project, of which Farmer-Led Trials is a piece of. So first, I want to just talk a little bit about like what the application is, and then I thought it might be nice just to kind of give an example of what the technical support looks like for kind of each of the steps. So biggest thing right now is our application portal is now open. It's open through December 1st. The application is really simple, right? We're basically trying to get a sense of like, you have a question. It's a question that can be tested. It's a question that impacts your production system. That's kind of it. Have you thought about it before? You kind of given it any mullings of like, this is how I would measure what I would do. This area of my field I could use it for, right? So that's kind of the basis of these questions, making sure that that commitment and just a little bit of thought has been put into it beforehand. The grant cycle for these is 1 year. So unfortunately, these are not like long-term studies. This is kind of something you could capture within a season. That doesn't mean because the application portal closes in December, it's like a December to December cycle. It just means from within the time we kind of sign that MOU of like, yep, you're doing the program, you've got a year to complete your trial, right? The grant funds are not the biggest piece of this, though it helps because we like to acknowledge that there is definitely a barrier, right, to trialing something. You might be putting a piece of your land out of production or out of the production it would normally be in, so you could have enough space for your replications, right? You might be trialing a different amendment that you're like, I'm just not sure how that's going to impact my yields. You might be trialing a different seed variety that you're not sure how it's going to sell at market. Any of these things, as well as the materials you might need to mark your trials. This is just an acknowledgement that there is a financial barrier along with like, time, energy barrier. But the biggest piece of what we provide is technical assistance. So OFRF is there with you every step of the way to help design from starting your research question all the way to what kind of data do I collect? How do I collect it? How often? What makes sense? How do I mark it out in my field? And then, of course, the biggest piece is doing that statistical analysis of the data that you do collect at the end. But I'll talk about this more, but the farmer commitment's huge. I talked to the farmers at least every month, depending on kind of what phase in their project it is. So a lot just kind of chatting through Zoom, things like that. But, for instance, we had one farmer that wanted to test an on-farm compost recipe versus a commercial fertilizer for her cucumbers. She usually sells her cucumbers at market by the piece, right? So like her normal yield count was not by weight at all. But for this, it was like, no, we need the yield count, right? It's just going to help us. And so that's like is an extra step. And it was something, like these are little things beyond the hopping on Zoom or on the phone to chat with me. These are extra things of like you might need that extra step. So who is eligible? Any farmer or rancher in the US or its territories. The farms must be certified organic or in transition to organic. This is a question on the application. Just to not note, because of where our funding source is, it was really important that this was a piece. If you are farming on land that you have access to, right, we just want to make sure that you can make decisions on that farm during the course of the trial. So if you own or lease the farm, as long as you're in stable ownership. And then, of course, we do give preferential treatment to people of color as well as veterans and beginning farmers. So that's a question on the application too. If you are a managing partner or any identify any of in any of those ways. Our priority areas are pretty broad. This is actually based on our NORA report, what I mentioned before, the National Organic Research Agenda. Basically, this aligns with any of the major production challenges that organic farmers have. We just kind of like to get a sense of kind of like where do you think this impacts your farm the most? And of course, you can be impacting most of these things, but these are kind of our priority areas within. The one thing I will note is that for the organic livestock breeds and management, that one's tough in a year, right? Like what can you do with livestock within a year that's going to show some impact? So that one is a thoughtful one if you are a rancher. And I'll also say before anybody applies, we do have a lot of resources available if anyone's interested or wants to share it. We have spaces where you can go online and on our website and you can click to have like a one-on-one consultation, either have questions about the program or questions about your question. You can talk to us. We have a really robust frequently asked questions section on the website, which does include the rubric for this. So it's basically how our reviewers will evaluate all of the applications coming in. We want to be really transparent on what that looks like. And then the other piece and the biggest piece is our Farmer's Guide to Conducting On-Farm Research. This is free. It's available on our website. Please check it out. It basically steps you through and it provides worksheets as well on each of kind of these major steps of planning out your trial, how to build it out, things like this. We rely really heavily on this in terms of like, hey, this is something you can check out while maybe you have a question. Sometimes it's there, right? And so, like I mentioned, we do have the grant funds available, right, for a certain number of farmers. And that also includes like the really robust technical support. But if you're interested, and maybe this doesn't always apply, but this guide can really walk you through these steps. We're really proud of it. And it's kind of how we kind of phase through things. And I like to work along with things. It's just kind of my brain work. So sometimes I think it's helpful just to have like, oh, this is kind of what I can anticipate coming. And so to that point, I was just going to use these kind of like steps that are just like in our farmer's guide to just basically like say, give a little example of like what we're seeing from the farmers and what our technical support kind of looks like. So step one is really the basics, right? Like what is it that you want to ask? Is it clear and specific, like what you want to answer, right? Like it can't be like, all over the place. Can you address it within within the means of the trial as well as the time of the trial? It's more than a yes or no, and you can test it, right, by gathering evidence. So these are core. We have definitely worked with people that like started with maybe three-ish questions and really had to hone it down. One of the really good questions that one of our farmers had is this one you see at the bottom of the slide. It's was the effect of solarization on the beneficial microbes in the high tunnel over time. Really specific, really easy to say, we can figure this out, right? We can get answers to this. And it was a great trial. If you want, this farmer actually gave a presentation on our recent forum. The recording's coming out soon through on our YouTube channel and on our website. So if you have interest, she kind of shares how she did it and what she did. Step two is going through what you want to measure. And right, there's so many different things, but is what do you want to answer? Do I want to see how mulch, in fact, impacts my soil moisture? Do I want to see what this amendment impacts my yield, right? So it just really depends what your answer is. And there's so many different ways. But for instance, we had a pepper farmer that wanted to see what shade cloth did to their pepper production. But it was more for seeds because she's a seed producer. So she's like, what do I need to measure? Do I really care about, the fresh weight, or do I just care about the fresh weight and then the dry weight of the seeds? And so honing in what it was she wanted to measure and what information was really relevant to her question. Step three, and this one's complicated, right? This is a hard one. It's the choosing experimental design. We definitely walk through a lot. And I will say, since we're national, we don't get a chance to get onto the field with the farmers. So there's a lot of kind of like, show us maps of your farm. Let's talk through it of what this looks like and where it can be. This is the key of like taking your observations and making sure you're adding that level of replication so that what you see from this trial really gives you some results. And just making sure you put the land aside, you can market things like this. So the experimental design we really spend a lot of time with. For example, one of our farmers had a vineyard and wanted to test the mulch impact on the yield and the bricks level of the vines. But he had some vines that were like 3 years old and some that were like 25 years old. And so it was sort of like working within that variability to build out like a design that would make sense and you wouldn't have too much variability in what you're seeing. So that's some of the stuff we try to address. And then choosing your trial location goes right into it, right? And so dedicating that space to the trial. And, with one of our farmers, he wanted the trial to be a part of his production system and just didn't really put the space aside to do it. And so there it was sort of like we didn't really get the good amount of data that we needed to order to say like, yep, this kind of worked because we did it within his successions. So we use successions as replications rather than putting a portion out of the field. And so it is really important to kind of mark things out, think through like, how am I going to use this space and making sure that like you're okay with that dedication there. But we do walk through, hey, this is a great way to like mark your area to make sure you know which plot is which and kind of building out that system of like just thinking through these things that like sometimes you don't get to until you get to them, right? But like you've got experience on your side with us. Um, then it's establishing the trial, doing the fun part, right? Like getting it going with your collecting your data. This was a kind of calendar map of one of our farmers that was doing a occultation tarping trial. So, making sure that all the supplies are ready for collecting the data. We kind of talk through, okay, so when you're going to do this, how are you going to collect, your like biomass sampling? Like, what is it that you're going to use? How are you going to market? Do you have all those supplies ready for you? And kind of just making a plan as well as data sheets to stay organized and just making sure there's like a schedule. So we're kind of staying together and we'll do little check-ins just to make sure, hey, how's this going? How's the weather? Are you actually going to be harvesting at this time or whatever, just to check in. And then step 6 and step 7, which is analyzing your data and telling your story. So on our end, we do the statistical analysis. We help with that to make sure what we're seeing, it makes sense. We'll run it through at different times. We, of course, talk through this with our farmers, making sure they understand kind of what we're looking at and why. And then, of course, giving a little bit of like why we think what we see, right? We also recommend other research papers on this. But the really fun part has been the farmers telling their stories about the observations and what they see, right? Because sometimes within the experience, you get more out of it than maybe just like, nope, this wasn't statistically significant. But what does this mean? And what other questions does it have? And how does this impact my production going forward? And what was really great, and so far with all the farmers, it feels like every question they've asked only leads them, of course, to more questions, right? Or having even a better sense of like, oh, if I want to compare this, this is kind of how I might do it in the future. So it really is a little contagious in a good way of, oh, let me think about how I can add this to my farm or change this. Or if I'm seeing this, then I wonder what this would. So for instance, one of our farmers checked on, he wanted to see what increasing the number of seed rows per bed of beets and radishes did on yield. But now he's like, well, maybe that's not what matters. Maybe it's the in-row planting density, and so it just kind of really went in a spiral of what else can we see here. And I did want to share, and this is maybe the funnest. So this is our first cohort. This is all the kind of types of farms and their research questions from our first year. So about 4 of these folks are pretty much done. We're wrapping up a findings report. But a few of them still have some data to collect or a few other steps to take before we're kind of in that final space with them. But you can see all pretty diverse practices, different, spread of sizes and, goals with their farm and things like that. So we've been really excited to work with them and see the results there. And I know this is kind of the fun one. So really, I was going to do questions after this or hand it back over to you, but I might just go back to that slide because I know it's the more interesting one and there's a lot of content on it. But thank you. That's my spiel. I'm happy, and Thelma as well, I'm sure is happy to answer any questions or talk about the program.
Lindsay, I saw you jumped off for a while and came back on, but I wondered if you might be willing to kind of share your experience working with this group and the technical experience that they offer, which is super exciting.
Yeah. Hi.
Right.
Good timing. I have my coffee and I'm not out of reception yet. All good. Yeah, you can see we're up there, I think. It's True by Farm. I think I saw the slide. So I got to trial shade cloth on my pepper seed crop. So I was growing a pepper crop for seed, and I'd noticed previous years that I was getting a lot of blossom drop during like heat spikes, and I was wondering if shade cloth could help with that. This was, of course, an insane year to be doing that. Who knew? But we did get some results that seemed to tell me some things. I'm one of the stragglers. My results aren't in yet. But I will say, yeah, so technical support has been awesome. That guide that Mary referenced is really like really good. I thought I knew some things about um, like creating a trial, but I worked with Jose before Mary, and it was just like it's so concise about like, I don't want to say it exactly like this, but the bare minimum that you need to do, which is the practical um, aspect. You know what I mean? Right? Like so much is for people that maybe have more resources to take on trialing and to scale it to what's realistic for a farmer to do in the midst of production, and making sure that the project is something you can pull off instead of making it too big and then ending up with no results because you just got overwhelmed or gave up or whatever. That was really helpful. Like I originally wanted to do 3 different varieties, and Jose was like, or one's fine. So that was good. And it also informed, I did a Warner grant this year for onion trialing, and it even informed that project, which had already been developed with Fernanda Krupak at OSU, but like it helped while I was doing it. I was kind of learning about just some ways to collect data, some ways to even just how to lay out my blocks was really helpful. It helped me make a spreadsheet. I kind of just like, oh, and also Mary and Jose, they provided some spreadsheets and just some, data recording records. And I don't know. It was just all these like little things that make it hard otherwise if you're already busy and your head's outside already. And then also the check-ins have been super helpful. It kept me on task. They never shamed me for not having my shit done. I was always like, well, how about next month? So there was a lot of like encouragement and help and what can we do? And there was stuff I was stuck on, and either Jose or Mary would look something up like, okay, what is a like sensory panel look like for a pepper, right? And not just what I would have come up with, but what has been done in research before. It's just really helpful. Yeah. Anything else, Mary? I know you guys did a ton for me, but just in general, and I'm sure when we do the analysis and reporting out, that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see your data. You have not been a straggler. You've been great. We kind of have a sense that like, once season starts to slow down, everybody can take their breath and get to their computer and do this stuff that's like, not always immediate to like their needs. So no, Lindsay has been great. And it's just been really fun to see different questions, right? Because everybody's operation is so different, and it's just been really wonderful. So no, thank you for
Yeah.
that. It has been
And I
equally
will say,
joyous working with you.
okay. Yeah. I will say, I don't remember the application being particularly daunting. I've done a lot of grant applications this year, and I remember that one being really in scale and useful and good at guiding you to form your question. So if you're feeling like overwhelmed by the idea of more grant applications, that one was not bad.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it is just a Google form, so it's pretty simple, hopefully. I mean, we of course want you to put thought into it, but we're trying not to be like scared away because there's too many difficult applications that want things that we won't even use. So we're trying to keep it to what is important here.
And this might have been mentioned earlier, but I believe the way the kind of stipend went was that some of it was in the beginning of the season and then some's at the end, and that was helpful too because it's just nice to have some of that up front, and there was trust in that you'll finish the project. There's some at the end for when you finish, but it's so many things you just get it all at the end, like everything else in farming. All the money comes at the end, but this one, covered. I needed a few materials and it covered that.
How does that work logistically? Do you like have to turn in receipts or just the budget? Do you ask how much you want early on versus later?
It was a flat stipend, 1,500.
Mhm.
Is it the same next year, Mary, or did you guys talk about that
Yeah, it's
already?
1,000 up
Yeah,
front after you sign the MOU and then 500 at the end, just completion.
yeah.
Mhm.
And
That's
that
totally
did cover it because it is just a straightforward kind of single thing, something I was going to do anyway. So good to have actually good results for it. And my materials were just like shade cloth and some hoops that I will use into the future. So I just wrapped that in under the 1,500. And I would say in terms of how much effort, extra effort I've had to put into it, yes, it's there, but it's with the help through Mary, it's not as much. I'm not having to you guys have just helped with some of the record keeping and planning in that aspect that would otherwise rack up the hours.
Thanks. And Cassie, I will also add, we do have an option if folks don't want to receive it as a stipend for tax reasons, we can do reimbursement style. So if they want to just, submit receipts, we do have that as an option. But I think most people would rather just take the stipend up front.
cool. Perfect. Question in the chat from Bernice. She's wondering if there's restrictions if a farm's already involved with another research program. Any rules against double dipping or maybe a related project that ties into something you already have funding. Is that possible? And also, can a farm submit multiple applications for different
Yes, on multiple applications. I will say our application does have a space where you can kind of put in a couple ideas, right? So if you're one farm, you can say, these are kind of the 3 ideas I'm floating around, right? And then we would talk through this
Nice.
one's most feasible, right? On the double dipping or like multiple research, really what we're trying to do is give farmers the confidence to maybe say, like, if I want to keep doing this, I feel confident to apply for like a SARE grant or something like that, right? That's bigger. That's not everybody's path, right? Maybe they just really have a few questions and want to learn the process, but that's really our intention. We do have a question of like, if you've ever done research before, just kind of talk about it on there. And so it's not like a disqualifying piece at all.
Awesome.
I'll just also add, if at least the field that you wanted to do research on already has a research protocol in place from another research team, that could potentially be an issue, right? Like we can't help you design a project or a trial if there's already a design trial happening in that particular field.
Good point. Other questions from anyone on the call? If not, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have done in our group, which is to have like these little workshops where we sit down in small groups and maybe have a researcher or an educator that's done some field research there to offer expertise and kick some ideas around. So I'm interested in. We've been working under an OREI grant for the last years to just put these on, but I would love to keep doing them in the future. And how might that fit into what you're doing? And I will say too, I brag up your guide to on-farm research all the time. It is. I will echo what Lindsay said. It is a really great resource, and for those of you on the chat there, or those of you on the call, there is a link to that in the chat. So definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. But if you can think of any ways that we might work together, or maybe we can funnel people to you and have them in a little better state when they first contact you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited about the work that you've been doing, Cassie. And I know it's funded through the OREI. You never know if you're going to get another one, right? And that is a struggle. On our end, we're doing similar, like we were trying to have these, we call them our Seed to Success series. And our vision was to have these like conversational circles. So we'll have a researcher, a farmer present, and then have these breakout rooms where people can have conversation. And it hasn't worked as well because we're a national organization, right? Like you're just so you have your regional base.
Yeah.
So as soon as we would get to these breakout rooms and the conversational piece, like we'd have like 50% attrition, like half of the people would disappear. And so we now transition to doing more webinar style, but I think we're still open to, as much collaboration with other researchers. So maybe you don't have the time to host it and you want to say like, hey, OFRF, we have these researchers or farmers who want to talk about something in particular, and we can potentially plan it and, help facilitate it with some partnership, and then you can advertise it broadly as well. I think that's also an option because we also want to continue our seeds of success, right? We recognize that it's important. We did have one just a week and a half ago, which was on the farmer-led research trials. So we had 4 farmers presenting. That video will be up on our website soon. And we do have one next week on November 12th on transitioning to organic, where we have 2 farmers talking about their experiences, just, going through transition, and one who's been certified for 14 years and another who's been certified for a little less than that. 2 totally different type of production systems and scale, and they'll be sharing what their experience and challenges were like, right? We want to make sure what we're providing is relevant to the farmers.
That gives some space for anyone else to ask. I always have more questions. So if you're not comfortable speaking a question and you want to put something in chat, go for it. I will be happy to bring it up. Go ahead, Carl.
Finally, 40 minutes into this, I found the wave your hand thing.
Oh,
Look at I'm on a man. I don't do this all day, every day like you academics and other people,
It's true.
I do 2 of these every 6 months, except you, Cassie, in your group, I come out every month. I try.
I feel honored.
Well, I don't take it that way. I mean, it's fun. And besides, you told me you're gonna pay me to do this, I thought. But even if you don't. About last February, when I first got involved with this when I met Cassie and the rest of her posse, we were talking about trying to develop some sort of research. And I think she was the one who came up with the Friends with Benefits trials, trying to compare something like
Companion.
carrots love tomatoes, which out in the, at least in the backyard grower world, and in the publishing industry, there are books about that kind of stuff. But I can't find any research. And so it looks like the OFR people have only got a couple years under your belt, and you haven't done any kind of Friends with Benefits research yet. And I'd be happy to do that.
I love that name so much. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Blame Cassie and her crew.
Well, we thought it would at least get some attention at the SARE Review Board meetings.
Well, companion planting allegedly is beneficial for a lot of reasons. But maybe you academics can point me to some research to either support that or debunk it. Or some researchers said, yeah, well, we tried it and we didn't see any difference, but it was fun. I don't know. I'd love to do tomatoes.
I was actually about to ask a question similar to this. I'm super excited about you guys creating a database that is going to be accessible to farmers, right?
Yep.
Because, I mean, I work in academia. I have access to all these hard to read research reports, but those are hard to read and they're hard to find if you're not affiliated with an institution. So I'm curious what all that's going to cover. Is that going to get into like things like SARE, farmer rancher grants that might look at some of these questions that are hard for academic people to fund, but important to farmers?
I'll take this question. I'm going to take both Carl's question. We'd love if you wanted to submit a project for the farmer-led trial on companion planting. We do have resources on our website. We have a bunch of educational resources, soil health guides that do talk about the benefits of companion planting. And we did fund a project in 2021 for a different grant program for a companion planting. And it was, I believe, brassica to deal with the yellow margin leaf beetle. I don't remember exactly what the exact project focused on, but there are benefits to it. So if you were interested in submitting that, I think that sounds like a fantastic idea. Cassie, for your question, so OFRF is we're in the works of developing a centralized organic research hub. The audience is farmers and ag professionals or extension specialists who are looking for resources to help farmers. This is in response to a lot of growers over the years asking us they want one location, right? They don't want to look all over the place for resources. And so we are web scraping. Yes, SARES, we're web scraping Ohio State, we're web scraping Penn State, we're web scraping E-Extension, every institution that has organic resources and findings that we can then either direct to create quick summaries. We can't summarize all of them. Obviously, that it's a really time-intensive process just to create the back end architecture of it. But our goal is to have resources from across the country on a variety of different topics. We have categories: cover cropping, soil health, companion planting. So it will be pretty thorough. We've met with other extension specialists and farmers to give us feedback on our regional breakdown, the categories and topics that we focus on. We've had requests to also include economic findings in there. And we're like, okay, we got to take one step at a time. And the goal is for it to just continue to grow. We will, fingers crossed, we will launch it probably February 2025. So at this point, we're just refining what our web scraping process looks like. We did meet with SARES outreach communication point person, Sean McGovern, to talk to them about what it's like managing their massive database as well. So a lot of those findings are useful to farmers, but it's not always useful to an organic farmer. And so that's where we're trying to fill that gap.
And I just wanted to add one more thing about kind of to Carl's question about hey, us farmers could get together and do this. So one of the organizations that we really look to for designing this program, Ecological Farmers of Ontario, they have a system where, hey, we want to trial this potato variety, right? Or whatever it might be. No-till potatoes was one of the things. And they said, what farmers want to sign up for this trial, right? And then the replications are over multiple farms. And so it takes a little bit of burden, but you're also in it together because it's a question that this area, this region of farmers. So that's something interesting. I think it's such a great idea of hey, then together we come with here's our design for this project. And we get real answers of oh, this could have happened at your farm. It's just whatever, but you've got it spread of other farmers in your region. So I just think that's a great idea too. I just want to throw that in there.
The kind of thing we hope is going to eventually happen with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. Other questions, comments? Thank you, Thelma. I know you guys are putting out some surveys and stuff, and I have not responded to mine. I'm sorry, but yeah, I love what you're doing. There's a lot of work to do in this area, and these are just super fantastic resources for educators and for farmers looking to do some research.
Yeah, we're excited. We really encourage anybody to apply, right? There's it's a new program. Like we mentioned, this will just be our second cohort. So we're really still growing and learning with the farmers, and it's just been a really great experience. And it's just cool to ride along for the season with you. So yeah, and we're trying really hard to make sure we take the burden off of little extra things that can make it more difficult than it needs to be.
Lifting the statistics is I think that's probably one of the best things you're I think that's a stumbling block for a lot of people who probably haven't had a math class for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say too, tell me if I'm out of reception, I'm going through hills, but I want to say as you think about a research question, for me, I was thinking, oh, it has to be something no one's asked before. And it's okay to look at something specifically on your farm or in your region or in your market, right? Even if there's been research done on that topic, it is valid to say, yeah, but here in the Appalachian Hills or in this market that looks for this particular attribute. So as one hang up when I was looking at questions, I kind of got hung up on, oh, this has been asked before. There's ways to make that still valid to your specific setting. Right, Mary?
One,
Yeah, 100%.
Is
Great
important.
point.
yeah, we're like, yes, Lindsay,
Nice.
100%. We all agree. I mean, soil across one field varies, right? So studies that are done, you know, from one part of the state to another are going to have completely different results. And one rainy season, right? We know that there's so many other variables that contribute to those results.
Is there an outreach component that you require the farmers?
We do ask that they participate in, we do like an end of year forum where they just basically come, they share their findings. We just want to put it out there so people can kind of hear, oh, this is what I tried, this is what I did. So the first 4 farmers that had finished their data collection and everything just went last week. And like Thelma mentioned, that recording will be available soon. And then, so everyone else is kind of a little bit staggered of when they're going to finish. So I think we'll probably maybe early season next year kind of do our concluding forum for these final 5 farmers that are finishing up for this first cohort. But that's pretty much it, just kind of a quick that. And then we walk through doing like a findings report with the farmers. And that's basically just walking through like, this is what we did, how we did it, why we did it, and what we found out, right? What we learned along the way. So yeah, just to make sure that, right, there is something at the end where you can find it as a farmer and say, oh, somebody tried this. This is what they saw on their farm.
The questions from anyone? Well, the deadline is December 1st. It's great if you want to call Mary and work through her, that's great. If you would like to try to get a group together, or if our network can be of any use, please contact us. That's what we're here for. Trying to get some chemistry going. And Bernice has a question. Okay, you do have to be a certified organic farm or transitioning, right?
Yeah.
To apply. So you can be, but do you have to, is there like some, I don't know, how do you define transitioning?
So we do want them to be in that 3-year transition period, but I mean, we can't actually go out and, you know, verify, are you actually going to transition? Some people start the transition process, and I'd say there's a great deal of them who decide they don't want to continue with it because they recognize record keeping challenges or whatever that may be.
Last call for questions. Cool. This has been really great and exciting, and looking forward to seeing more of your work and sharing it with our network of farmers and educators. So this is great. Next month, phone contact information. Do you have like a form you want people to fill out online first, or how do you get started if you're interested in this?
Yeah, I can pop in this, and then I'm gonna, whoops, that's not what I wanted to. I'm gonna pop my email in the chat, and then there's also a way to get us for to sign up to participate. Let me go to that real quick.
And I did share the link to the main, we call it FLT, to the main farm-related research trial site, where you can sign up, as Mary was saying, but she'll probably get you the direct link for a one-on-one check-in.
Yeah, so you can book an appointment at this site. Here we go.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. It's so exciting to have you on this group with this call.